Welcome back to Tech, Tesla and Trends. Tonight, I'm thinking about the Twitter Space interview with Elon that occurred today. And just while he was flying to DC, it just was very impressive. The level of conversation, the answers that he provided to people, the quality of overall things that he committed to. I mean, just like, hey, I'm asking for a friend on Assange and Snowden type poll that he's got out there now. The and even a commitment to bring the Tesla quarterly reports into the Twitter space as well. I think that'll be a bigger opportunity for getting some of the retail conversation to occur there. Might be very interesting to see how that would develop. Time will tell. He did commit to it, so we'll see. That's one of the things that I really appreciate about Elon is he'll think about something and then he'll commit to it, and he typically does it. And if he doesn't do it, it's usually he'll come back to that individual and tell him, no, can't do that. It's not something we can accomplish. But in this case, we'll see what happens with Twitter Spaces. Overall, the conversation was quite positive, and it ranged all over the place, from Twitter to Tesla to SpaceX and Neuralink, and just wandered. From everything from free speech to some of those that were wanting Elon to somehow be able to work and have a conversation on China or Iran, or help them with Twitter there. And it's, if Twitter's not in that country, it's not part of the conversation. It's one of those things that we don't have a lot of control over. We can talk amongst ourselves in that regard, but overall, it's a very difficult thing. And it's for those countries to actually work through, and those people in those countries, it's their country. They're going to have to work through their challenges and fight for their freedoms if that's what they choose. And it will actually mean something to them in the doing. I think that is something that we take for granted far too often, that we have such benefits, the ability to speak our minds and have conversations with each other. If we're willing to listen and actually take the criticism that is provided, or even the suggestions that is provided. I found it very interesting that the moderator really sought to try and bring both sides of every issue into that conversation. And if he could, he would absolutely pull them in. And I would commend him for that. It truly was impressive. Over 1 million people entered into that Twitter space. That's a record that is more than CNN in their viewership for a single day, which is pretty freaking impressive. That is something that CNN is very jealous for, and that's would be probably why a lot of journalists are complaining about Elon just doing interviews in quote-unquote friendly places. Friendly or not, there were hard questions asked there. And it's important that we recognize that he's willing to talk. Tell me another billionaire who actually does what Elon did today. It's not very common. You'll get Mark Cuban a couple times. He'll sit down, but it's not the same level of conversation. But Mark's another personable one. It's not super common amongst those that have truly succeeded from that large financial perspective. It is a breath of fresh air. And his willingness to talk not down to, but actually with individuals of every economic economic perspective is actually one of the things that makes it work. But circling back to where Twitter is and its overall health, there was a good comeback when somebody asked, "How's Twitter doing?" He says, "Twitter is very much alive," and I would agree with that. It feels very different from what it was. Today is my 11th anniversary of joining Twitter. Yeah, not much of an anniversary. But in all reality, a good portion of those years, I've avoided Twitter because it was just a hellscape on its own. You could not, in any fairness, have a conversation without people yelling and screaming and seeking to block you or whatever else. And it just, they disagreed with you. They didn't want to hear from you. Well, you can't have a conversation in that regard. It's necessary to have conversations with people that you don't agree with. It's okay. It's a wonderful opportunity. And I think that's what will make Twitter healthier as a platform is people become aware of that and are willing to engage in conversations. Looking next at the overall health of Twitter, Elon has a pretty good plan there he said, that Twitter's evolution outside of acquisitions has been very slow. And you take a look at what's going on with Twitter. He's literally gotten rid of about 75% of the pre-acquisition staff, and Twitter runs a lot better now from my perspective. And I have to give him props for that, is recognizing that there was a lot of dead weight there that was not contributing to the overall good of Twitter. And the number of bots that's there too is significantly less. I've definitely seen that decreasing in the last little bit. So that focus on engineering teams and getting code written, because Twitter is a software company and it has servers, and that's pretty much all it has. And that's all it should really operate in from a perspective of having being the town hall for the world. And looking at how they're reorganizing that software team, it's the speed of commit that matters. When an edit button takes you 10 years to develop, there's a problem. And that's truly one of the biggest problems that existed with Twitter, is they did not have that focus on what they were building. And it devolved into a conversation about, well, which speech are we going to censor? How are we going to stop this? And that's what led them down the whole laptop debacle of, blocking an actual news story. So it's going to be, as those Twitter files come out, we'll see what else comes out and see if it raises to the level of conspiracy or if it's just simply bad business practices that occurred. Time will tell. Then looking at the, that speed of commit leads to the speed of iteration. And that's part of the whole, that leadership process, is teaching people how to improve your product and leading them to an improved product. And that's exactly what Elon's doing. Encouraging that and driving it deep into the DNA of the new Twitter. That speed of code commit allows for iteration and change and an overall proved code base. And as that grows, the value of what Twitter becomes will be much greater. There were lots of little glitches and problems with that Twitter space today. I guarantee you, because Elon was there, he's aware of it, and he was listening in, and he's got there's a recorded, and if you haven't seen that recording, go listen to it. It's worthwhile. And you can definitely see that there is a future here that is very different than what the mainstream media has been attempting to maintain, which was, we get to tell you what you believe, instead of you have a conversation with people and learn and decide for yourself. Because that one of the things that was repeated multiple times was, I didn't necessarily agree with Elon when I first came in here, but he changed my mind about him. Not changing their mind about whatever it was that they were discussing, but about him. Because the common thread that the Democrats have been throwing out is billionaire, 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 Elon Musk. You know, what the financial status of an individual is not a reflection upon whether or not their mind is useful and capable of providing information. And that is one of the things that I find refreshing in Elon, is that he is very much willing to listen to ideas and accept criticism from everyone around him if it is relevant and factual. And Twitter, there's a lot of suggestions that have been coming his way. And he's focused on that, bringing Twitter into a healthy state and making sure that, expenses are reasonable. Though that will result in a much healthier Twitter this time next year. And Twitter will be very much alive and well. So I'm curious if any of you had the opportunity to catch that live, that Twitter space, and the conversations afterwards. It was quite interesting. A big discussion there on what the meaning of freedom of speech is and how it impacts us. Tell me what you think. I'd love to hear it. For now, have a good night, and we'll talk to you in the comments.